This is Steve.
And this is Ryan.
And you're listening to 60 Cycle Hum, the guitar buying, selling, trading, fixing, modding, breaking, and reviewing podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. This is our first episode. Well, this is version 1.2, something like that. We did a dry run of this and completely screwed it up, so we're doing it again. To kind of just break it down, Steve and I are friends. We've been friends for a long time. We've been in bands together. We're currently on the worship team at our church, and we constantly just talk about gear online throughout our workday. And we've been listening to podcasts and figured, hey, let's do a podcast too. Let's join in on the fun.
Yeah, everyone loves new podcasts, right?
Yeah, everyone only listens to new podcasts. Anytime you see an old podcast, you're like, get it out of here. I don't want this. I want the new stuff.
Yeah. Delete.
Yeah, that's why there's a top new section on iTunes. We're going to be in that. And then when we get old, no one's going to listen to us.
Yeah.
So we're going to, the format of this is we're going to talk about gear of all kind of price points. We're going to talk about ads that we see throughout the week on Craigslist or on eBay or anything else of that matter, really. We're going to talk about our own gear. We're going to talk about our friends' gear. We're going to talk about gear that we wish we had and wish we didn't have anymore. So let's get started. We've got a pile of Craigslist ads here that we're going to go over. And top of the list, what should we start with? The $800 Strat?
Oh, everyone loves the $800 Strat.
Yeah. This was posted on Craigslist a few days ago. And it's a Stratocaster for $800, which isn't unusual.
No.
You can get Stratocasters $800.
Yeah, that's a great price for an American Strat, right?
Well, this is a Mexican.
That's
money for Mexicans usually, and that's not a racist thing. That's just a quality of build manufacturing thing.
Yeah.
It's a little unusual to see something like this pop up because Mexican Strats any day of the week. What do you think?
Right now, $350?
$350. I don't know. I saw some on Craigslist today for $275.
Really?
Yeah. I saw 2 or 3.
Wow.
But this one's in pretty good condition. It doesn't say anything about a case. If it came with a case, that'd be a little closer, but not that much closer. I think you could get $400 if you had a hard shell case with it or something like that, or a practice amp.
I heard someone say, I was reading a forum, and I heard someone say that they bought a Strat or Telecaster. They're the same price point.
Sure.
New from Guitar Center. The guy he was buying from worked out some coupon deal, and he walked out for like $400 with a gig bag. And these things, normally, if you don't negotiate with them at all, you're going to pay $500.
Oh, yeah.
So $800 used, not so much.
Doesn't make any sense. You kind of wonder where this guy is coming from. You wonder, like, what the situation was when he bought this. Did he pay $800 for this? Or did he, like, go online and see the price point for an American and think, oh, well, that's what I have. That looks just like my guitar. Or did he get scammed at some point and he's trying to recoup his losses and he just doesn't know? Like, you always wonder where these things come from, these crazy overpriced guitars that you see on the used market.
Yeah, with the way mom and pops used to operate, they could get away with a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, and this isn't to dig at mom and pops because everyone loves their local mom and pop shop.
I've got a mom. I've got a pop.
Exactly.
I love my mom and dad.
I've had my guitars set up at the local shops. I've gone to the small shops. It's great to build a repertoire with your local small shop.
Sure.
But unfortunately, there are shops out there that if you don't know what you're looking for and you come in and say, the Strat's on the wall at the list price of, $700 or whatever, and you don't know that Guitar Center down the street is selling these for $500, they're going to charge you $700 and they're going to make you feel like you're getting a great deal.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of those, that when it happens is you get some guy who, a lot of times we're in a Navy town or a military town. Guys walk off the base and they have an itch to do anything other than push-ups all day. They've been doing push-ups all day. They want to do something else, something that feels really cool. So they go to the pawn shop and the pawn shop sells them something overpriced. And then later on down the road, they haven't played it and they're trying to move it again. And they don't know what the actual value is.
Yeah.
They thought they paid fair value, or they think they paid under. Yeah. And so they're trying to sell for the right price. But it's odd to see. It's odd to see that price point.
It's pretty rare. This guy probably got 50 emails in 5 minutes, all telling him like, what are you smoking and where can I get some of that?
You think people send nasty emails over overpriced stuff?
You used to see a lot of replies on Craigslist itself to stuff like this. I don't know. I've sent emails to people. I'm usually not nasty, but just like, hey, just so you know, here's a link to a brand new one on Musician's Friend for $500.
Yeah.
So,
I've before, if I've seen something that I want and I think it's overpriced, I'll write them and I'll be like, well, you're way too overpriced, but this is what I'll pay. I'll make them like a fair offer.
Sure.
And usually they're not open to it. I don't hear back from them.
Yeah.
And then you think that eventually they figure out the right price and they're like, oh, I should have gone with that first guy.
Yeah.
Made me that offer.
Or someone else sees it and goes, oh, Mexican, American, like what's the difference? I'll pay $800 for that.
I'm not racist.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care about the race of the person who owns it right now.
Right.
Yeah, there's a quality difference between the American and the Mexicans, and it has to do with price points. It's the difference between, like a Chevy or a Plymouth or a Dodge sort of situation, different.
I don't know anything about cars.
I barely know anything about cars. Okay, so next thing on the pile, we've got, Steve sent me this ad about a week ago, I think. It's for a 1970s Fender Stratocaster neck, 3-bolt, because it's 70s. It's got the big headstock. Made in the USA. I don't think they were making anything else back then.
No.
Yeah, so they want $1,000 for it. But the issue with the ad, I don't know if that would be an unfair price normally for if it was mint condition 70s neck. It's kind of high.
It's a little high, but I mean $800 isn't unreasonable for a neck that old. The 70s stuff has really jumped in value in the last 2 or 3 years, which is weird because 10 years ago you could get a 70s Strat for the same price as an 80s Strat.
I remember all throughout the 90s the mantra was 70s Fender stuff is garbage.
Yeah, it was
worthless.
It was the height of the CBS era. Yeah. It was the height of Fender doing cost-cutting things and just general weird stuff to their instruments that, it resonated with some people and with other people. It was just like, why are we going to a 3-bolt neck? This is unstable. Why are what's with this funky big headstock?
Yeah.
Why did you put a master volume on the twin reverb?
Well, the real issue with this and the real reason that we're looking at it at all is because not only is it a 70s neck, not only is it $1,000, but it's scalloped. And if you don't know what scalloped is, look it up. It's something that 80s guitar shredders would have done to their necks, where basically the wood is taken out in between the frets, so you get this these peaks and valleys. Like the effect is these crazy high frets, almost like if you were playing like a sitar or something like that, where the strings are floating super high off the fretboard, and you can do these crazy bends and whatnot. But the issue is that that's not a factory thing. Fender didn't make the neck this way, not in the 70s anyways. I don't think Fender was making scalloped necks out of the factory until 90s.
Yeah, I've never seen one. Now, something that usually Fender really popularized this with the Yngwie signature Strats, and something I didn't know until recently is that, or maybe I just didn't realize, is that the Yngwie Malmsteen Strat is a 70s headstock.
Yeah.
So this is semi-accurate to the Yngwie deal, but the Yngwie, again, it's coming from the factory. It's got a full gloss finish. This one is obviously scalloped by hand. It actually looks like it's scalloped deeper than you would see on a factory scallop.
Pretty dramatic. And anytime you see a scallop that's done by anyone who's less than a professional, like a luthier, you can tell that something is funky. It looks like it's carved out with a hand tool of some kind. Someone sat in his garage and put the neck on his workbench and used whatever sharp object he could get his hands on to scrape away wood until he had that scalloped effect, which doesn't affect the playability. It just looks nasty, and when you're done, you don't have $1,000 neck anymore.
No, and it seems like half the time you see these pop up on Craigslist, it looks like some guy did it with a prison shank.
Or he was trying to make a prison shank, like a really big one.
Yeah. It's, it's something that for some reason it's a very amateur thing that you see. I mean, it's a guy who, you know, spends his time listening to Yngwie Malmsteen records and goes, I want to have a guitar like that. Now, the Yngwie necks, actually, they fetch a decent price on eBay. I was looking at some today in the $600 to $700 range. But at the same time, that's the Yngwie signature neck.
Yeah.
You can get Yngwie style Strats. The made in Mexico, I saw a made in Mexico today for $300 or $400. I think it sold. I've seen made in Japan,
and that's a whole guitar,
right? This is whole guitar. The made in Japan for $500 to $600, and then just, you know, vintage single necks, the Yngwie necks with the signature from whenever they did that run, going at tops, I would say $700. And again, this is Fender factory finish. This isn't some guy taking a 3-bolt neck and hacking it up in his garage with a prison shank.
And this thing looks old. It's gray. It's got the finger rot on it. Like, the guy didn't finish it well after he did the scallop. You know, that's a look that people go for, but not on something that was home done like this. So if you were going to buy a scalloped neck, if you were going to buy this neck and you were really interested in it, what do you think you would pay?
I don't know. No more than $300.
Really? Wow.
And even that, I mean,
put yourself in the mind frame where you wake up one morning and you're in a cold sweat and you're like, I gotta get a scalloped neck. I just got to. And this is the first thing you see come up available on Craigslist.
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I've seen the MIM full guitars for $300-400.
Sure.
It
makes sense. That makes sense that you would only go $300.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the plus side is this is like a USA neck. It is an old neck.
And it doesn't have tuners either. I mean, there's another $40.
Oh, it doesn't.
There. No.
Oh, jeez. Now, I did see something weird when I was trying to do a little research on this neck, and I saw I think it's a 64 Stratocaster that someone had put a scalloped neck on. So here's this super vintage guitar, 64 Strat, which is pre-CBS.
That's a $2,000 mistake right there.
Right. It actually sold for a little over $6,000.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what the normal going price on those guitars are. I mean, it may have just sold for $6,000 because somebody said, "Well, the body by itself is probably worth."
Oh, it had the body with it.
Oh, yeah, it's the whole thing. It's a full guitar for $6,000.
Yeah, you throw a different neck on there, and you can sell that for $20,000.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Well, you know, maybe if this guy sits on his home done scalloped neck for another 2 decades, it'll be worth $1,000. But that'll be in the post-apocalypse when he's trading it for Go Juice.
Maybe he can just slap it on a body with a set of pickups and then sell it for $1,000.
Yeah, it's got to be a good body and good pickups, though.
Yeah, well,
and he's got to, you got to take a loss on that thing.
Yeah,
he probably. I hope that he didn't buy it recently and then do that. I hope that he bought it as it is, or I hope that he bought it in the 70s and then did that. I hope that someone wouldn't buy a new, well, not new. I hope that someone wouldn't buy a normal condition 70s neck and then take it home and do a home scallop job on it.
Hey, if you really love Yngwie, I guess so. You got to have that fat Fender headstock. Anyway, what's the next ad?
Our next ad, we're doing 3 ads today. This is the 3rd ad, if you've been counting.
Yeah.
Number 3 on the countdown.
Right. Hey, and if you've got an ad you want us to take a look at or talk about, we're on Facebook at 60 Cycle Hum. What's the? I don't know what.
I don't know.
Just search it.
Yeah, search for the groups. We have a 60 Cycle Hum group. We troll a lot of different groups and a lot of different forums. Steve is a mod on a couple different forums.
Yeah.
And look us up. Send us things that you find on your local Craigslist or on eBay or anywhere. If you're on the gear pages.
For sure.
Or anything like that. If you see something that you think is really cool or really weird or really outrageous, send it our way.
If it's something that might get deleted, take a screenshot and send it to us. You can also email us at 60cyclehumcast@gmail.com. Is that what it is?
Right.
I don't know. I set it up a couple days ago and then I forgot.
Yeah, I think that's it. So our last one is one we picked because it's a classic. It's been jumping onto Craigslist for as long as Steve and I have known each other, I think.
Yeah.
Which might predate Craigslist somehow. But it keeps popping up. And it used to pop up with a price. The guy used to ask like $500 something for it. And what we're talking about here is a limited edition Epiphone Les Paul electric guitar that is nut to bridge branded for Sobei energy drinks.
Sobei.
Yeah.
Sobei yourself.
Sobei yourself.
Sobei your thirst?
The drink that's got the lizards on it, and they used to have more commercials than Geico.
Yeah.
And doesn't have any commercials now.
I wonder if Sobei ever tried to sue Geico.
For using lizards?
Yeah. Can you copyright lizards?
I think specific character lizards. I mean, when Geico came out, it was kind of like, oh, that's similar. Like, oh, another computer animated lizard.
Yeah.
Not when Geico came, when their ads came out.
Right. Sobei had a bunch of lizards in some of those commercials. They had they're all changing. I don't know.
I think the last time I saw Sobei ad was like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Are they even still in business?
I think so. Yeah, food and drink companies don't go out of business. They just sell to smaller markets.
Right. Right.
They stick around. But this guitar's been bouncing around for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, this is basically, it's green. It's almost like an Eddie Van Halen Frankenstein stripe pattern.
They're definitely trying to do the Van Halen Frankenstein thing with the strips of white and black, only it's over a green finish. And then it's got the Sobei logo as an inlay on the headstock. And it's your standard flat top Epiphone Les Paul special. Like, without all the Sobei branding, these go for $300.
I mean, Les Paul special. Now, this one's a little weird because it is the set neck. It's not the bolt-on neck of the normal special.
But still, the set necks don't go for that much.
The set neck, I mean, this might be maybe equivalent to like an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. or something with a set neck. I mean, if it's not painted for Sobei, maybe $200, $250. I actually looked on eBay and I found a bunch of these, and I think the one that sold the highest was like $275 for Sobei branded Epiphone. And you know, I don't know how these things play.
Hold on a minute. Okay, that was weird. Sorry.
What's up?
It was like, I guess it's because I wasn't talking. I thought I lost the mic again. We'll cut this. Okay, go ahead.
So I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about completing listings.
Oh, right. So I was looking at completed listings for these Sobei guitars, and they're going for about $275 at the most. Right. And there was this design and another design, and I think the other design was actually carved top, but I'm not 100% sure. But generally, these kinds of promotions by brands just don't really seem to fare well. No. I mean, if you really love the brand, you go for it, and otherwise you just don't really care. Like,
does anyone love Sobei enough to buy a Sobei guitar?
They're still selling on eBay, but my hope is that people are buying them and stripping them and putting new finishes on them.
Sure. I looked at the completed listings too, and I wasn't seeing. You know, I saw the ones that sold for $275, but I was seeing a lot of red text of ones that did not sell at all. A lot that were listed and just no one bid, no one was interested, and then every now and then you find one that sold for some reason, and then you find the majority of them were selling for under $200, like $175, $150, stuff like that. Like getting one for $275, $250 was really
you've got to get lucky, and you know the guy in the ad says this is a limited run of 500, but given the number of these that seem to always be on the used market, you got to wonder, like, if there's only 500, why are they still in circulation at this heavier rate? Like, do people think, oh, really cool green guitar? Right. And then they get it and go, oh, but.
So yeah, there's only 500 of these according to the ad, but I think that's way over market saturation for this. There's not demand. There's not 500 people in America who want this specific guitar with these specific markings on it. There's not. I'm sure there's more than 500 Sobei fans.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more than 500 Epiphone Les Paul Special fans, but the Venn diagram where they overlap is that's a really small space.
Yeah, they really probably should have made one of these for the president of Sobei, one of these for the president of Epiphone, and maybe like 50 more, and
as radio station prizes.
As radio station prizes, and then maybe another 50 for like the Christmas party at Sobei.
Right. Maybe that's what this is.
Yeah, well, that's 50, and like 2. That's 102.
Yeah. But, it's probably a promotional thing. Sobei used to have a huge budget for advertising.
Yeah.
They bombard us with commercials all the time.
Right.
They were probably like, oh, we'll just get these out at radio stations and events, and people are going to love it. We'll do raffles, and people are going to want this guitar. And people stopped drinking Sobei. They started drinking Red Bull, and they started drinking whatever else.
Yeah.
And no one wants this.
Yeah, I almost wonder if these, I don't know Sobei corporate history, but I almost wonder if these might have rolled out as they were losing popularity. And so what we really have is just some distributor who's got a bunch of these in a warehouse.
Right.
And was trying to promote all these to radio stations, and all the radio stations were like, sorry, dude, we're doing Red Bull promotions now. And so now he's stuck trying to sell these on eBay or on Craigslist. That's what I should have looked at on eBay, see how many of these guitars are being sold by the same person.
It might be one guy who's got a truck full of them. He was like a distributor. He dropped off all the Sobei at the grocery store. Yeah. And every time he went out, they gave him one to give to store managers or something. And he just left them in the back of his truck thinking, oh, I'm just going to hold on to these. No one will ever know. Now he knows that there were only 500 made because he's got all of them.
Right.
And every day he counts them. And he's like, I've got 475 of these.
Oh, jeez.
Got to sell them all. If I could sell them all, I'll be a thousandaire. I can buy the motorhome that my mom lives in. And all these set. It's not a license sort of thing that's held up well. There's other licenses that do better. We were talking a while back ago about the Wayne's World Strat.
Yeah.
There's been a few of those on Craigslist, and people still buy those.
Yeah, it's a solid guitar. The Wayne's World Strat's it's a made in Japan Squire. The only thing that really makes it Wayne's World is it's got the Wayne's World neck plate on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just a Arctic white or whatever. I think it's Arctic white. Fender has all these weird whites, Olympic and Arctic. I can't tell them apart.
Sure.
But it's one of those white Strats with a maple neck. And, unless it's a Wayne's World Strat, you're never thinking like, it's not broadcast. If you go into a show and someone's playing a Sobei Les Paul, you're going to be like, why does that guy have a Sobei Les Paul?
Right.
What's up with all those lizards?
It's going to look really weird on stage. People are going to wonder. They're going to look at you drinking your water bottle and wonder why it's not a Sobei bottle.
Yeah.
They're like, what? This guy's so into Sobei. Why would he drink anything else? Now he's getting something from the bar. It's not Sobei. I don't get it. You get a Wayne's World Strat. It's just a white Strat.
Yeah.
It's made to look like the Strat that was in the movie. That everyone is like, oh, that's the one. Don't touch it. It's in glass or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, let me play my May I Help You riff. Oh, it's Stairway. Hey, no Stairway.
Right. Every movie quote.
Yeah.
From that movie. And, those things, what were the price of those on Craigslist earlier?
The last one I saw was $275, which, that's a solid price for a made-in-Japan Squire.
Yeah, so I think they run a little higher than what you would pay for a normal MIJ.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. They're not... I don't think they're going to hold their value forever. I think the people who are into buying those are not terribly concerned with the movie affiliation.
Yeah. If anything, the value on Japanese market guitars seems like it's holding pretty steady, if not going up a little.
Oh, yeah.
I could see the price on those climbing over time, over like a long stretch of time. It's not going to skyrocket or anything. But they may just go up because they're Japanese Squires.
Right. I don't think it's going to be because of the connection of the movie.
The movie affiliation does not help.
No.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because no one who was a fan of that movie is going out and buying guitars to remember that movie.
Yeah. When did that movie come out? 92, 93, something like that?
Probably.
I want to say 92, but I don't know why. The target audience for that movie is in their mid 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, late 30s, early 40s probably. And it's, that generation is pretty cynical. They're not going to be, it's a little older Gen Xers. They're not going to be looking to get collectibles to recapture their youth.
No, and
if they wanted to buy, like a collectible from their musical sort of background, they would go buy, like a vintage Big Muff or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. This is the Big Muff that Mudhoney used.
Yeah, or they're going to go out and buy a Mustang because they want to be Kurt Cobain.
Yeah. They're not going to buy a Wayne's World strap because they saw a movie one time.
Hey, speaking of Kurt Cobain, I'm trying to sell a DS1. Anyone want a DS1?
Yeah, Steve's been trying to sell his DS1 for how long now?
Oh, it's been a while.
I think 4 or 5 months.
Yeah,
it's one of your ones that you did the Keeley mod on.
Yeah, I modded it by myself, and it sounds great, but the DS1 isn't. I remember when the Keeley mod was super hot on the market, and I thought, I can do some of these and maybe make a little money.
Mm-hmm.
And I did 2 or 3. I did yours, and I did mine, and I did one more. I just don't have room for it on my board because I don't really play guitar, and I have other overdrives and distortions that I use more. It sounds fine to me. I just don't use it.
Yeah, I think it's a great pedal. I've got mine around here somewhere, and I bust it out anytime I want to get that like big, heavy distortion kind of in between grunge and metal sort of sound. It's a lot of fun. It's got the little switch on there. You can go back and forth and get a little bit of kind of like a sag on one side of it.
Yeah.
A little gain
One's
sag.
a little more compressed than the other. The other one's a little like a light OD. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing that I thought it really fixed as far as the DS1 goes is the overall gain.
Oh yeah.
But I
it
suppose
changed the kind of the tone character of it.
Yeah, no, it did. It definitely tamed a lot of like the shrill that's associated with the made in Taiwan DS1s. Why are we talking about DS1s?
I don't know.
This isn't on the docket.
You went down this road and I followed you.
Here I go.
Where
again.
have you led us?
Here I go again on my own.
Yeah, you were talking about something you were selling. What am I selling right now? I'm selling a couple fuzz pedals. Got a Fuzz Bright I'm selling. I've got that Fuzz Probe I'm selling. I've got that HM2 I'm selling.
Right.
Haven't gotten any hits on any of them. It's been a while.
Jeez.
Probably need to lower prices, Steve.
Yeah, that would probably not be a bad idea.
Yeah, Mike keeps doing weird things. Okay, on to the next subject.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, was it a couple weeks ago? Maybe a week ago, there was a big thread on one of the forums we go on talking about clones versus counterfeits. Mostly in the guitar world, the whole pedal cloning, pedal counterfeiting thing, that's a whole other bag of worms. So we want to focus mostly on the guitar stuff today.
Let's not talk about pedal cloning. That's different. But we're focusing more on the post was more about these sellers that sell directly that make aesthetically like 100% clones of very high-end guitars.
Yeah, so
like copies of your high-end Gibsons, copies of your high-end like Rickenbackers, and anything that you can think of. They're making it and they're selling them for under $500.
Yeah,
direct from China. Like you go on these sites and there'll be a converter from yens to dollars, sort of.
Right. This started with a guy who wants to own a Martin. I think it was like a Martin D45, which a new Martin D45 is like $3 or $4 grand.
Yep.
I don't know if it's because of the way it looks or the way it plays. I've never played one. And I don't know. I don't remember why this guy wanted one. But it kind of spurred a lot of discussion on it. And, these guys who are making counterfeits now, they look right. I can't say they play right.
Yeah,
because,
who knows?
Who knows? I haven't had one.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that the setup is suffering. I imagine the frets are probably sharp. Yeah. Imagine the necks aren't terribly straight. It's not going to play like your multi-$1,000 guitar that you want it to look like, but it looks like it. It sure looks like it.
Right. So, if you're in a Beatles cover band and you want a 12-string Rickenbacker or whatever,
right,
and you don't want to fork out $2,000.
Yeah, and you don't care about the quality that much because it's more of a stage prop.
Yeah,
That stuff makes sense. But I think the question really was, where's the moral line on these things? Like, is anyone getting hurt by these things? Is Gibson or Rickenbacker or Fender or Gretsch getting hurt when you buy one of these clones? Are you hurting yourself because you're buying yourself something that's not that good? Are you hurting
are you a terrible person?
Are you a terrible person is the question. That's really the heart of the question is, can I buy one of these and not be a terrible person?
No, you can't.
I can't. I'm a terrible person.
You are a terrible person.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with me buying guitars.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated question, and because there are people that do legitimate clones and they're slapping their own name on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's enough of a market in the U.S. that you're really going to see the market flooded with cheap Fender clones, but you see a good number of Gibson clones.
Oh, yeah.
On Craigslist. I don't know how they're getting here. It's actually illegal to own one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
I know it's illegal to own guitars that are made out of certain woods.
Well, in this case, it's illegal to own something that isn't what it says it is.
Oh.
So if you buy one, it's illegal to sell, and then it's illegal just to own because it's considered a counterfeit item. It's a forgery. It's if you owned a counterfeit Monet or something, I guess. Sure. I don't know. I don't know anything about fine art. There's a lot of things I don't know anything about. But yeah, I've at least that's what I've heard on these is that technically, if you own one of these, you can be arrested for possession of a forgery or possession of a counterfeit item or something like that.
I guess where they would get you on that is if you tried to sell it to someone and they figured it out and they reported you.
Right.
That's where it starts to get pretty sketchy, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, really, it's hard because a lot of people look at the big brands like Fender and they just go, oh, these guitars are made on CNC machines. And, it's in the case of a Fender, I mean, Fenders are basically parts guitars, regardless of who's making them.
Right. Well, they're modular.
Yeah. They're modular. That's a
assembled.
Perfect word. Yeah. They're assembled. And so what's the difference between a Chinese guy building a Fender guitar, a Fender style guitar, and slapping a Fender logo on it and shipping it to the United States versus, Fender doing it?
Right.
Besides the obvious, Fender owns the Fender name kind of situation.
I mean, that's really where the legal dispute is. If these makers were slapping different names on there and doing different headstock shapes, no one would care.
No.
Fender wouldn't care. No, we wouldn't be having this discussion because there's thousands of companies out there, well, maybe not thousands, probably hundreds of companies out there in America making basically Fender and Gibson clones just with a different headstock shape and a different name on it and doing features that you might not find on a Fender or might not find on an existing Fender.
Right.
A lot of these people are making parts guitars and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, they're doing custom shop work, custom shop level work. Some of them are building their own bodies, building their own necks. Some of them are just kind of assembly shops, but they're using high-end parts.
Right, or they're taking parts that come as is and they're polishing their frets and they're doing setups and they're doing custom finishes on them and whatnot. It's so where's the moral line on this really? We were discussing if you buy one of these, are you a terrible person? And for me, I don't think I would ever order one of these. I don't think I'd ever order one of these brand new from China, from one of these websites.
Yeah, I would feel weird buying one new. I might not feel as weird buying one used, but yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if I would take that kind of risk. I guess if I was buying it used, maybe I'd have the opportunity to play it before I bought it. But at the same time, I mean, there is something cool about owning a genuine article.
Sure.
There is something cool about, playing a real Gibson versus playing something that it looks like Gibson and maybe with the right pickups and part swaps and whatever, you can get it kind of sounding like Gibson, but you're not, when you buy a Fender or Gibson or Martin or whatever, as far as the major brands go, you're not just buying a brand, you're buying into an ethos. when I pick up a Fender Telecaster, it's not just I'm playing a Telecaster, it's I'm playing the same style of guitar from the same brand that Buck Owens played, or Dwight Yoakam, or any of these kind of chicken picking country guys, or whatever. If you pick up a Strat, it's like, oh, I'm playing a Strat. Jimi Hendrix played the Strat,
right.
Eric Clapton played the Strat. This is kind of an ethos that you're buying into.
Well, I think there's a bit of a stigma when you pick up I don't think anyone in the audience notices if they're not guitarists, but as a guitarist, there's a little bit of a stigma if you are playing a guitar that you're playing without intention of it being a Strat, but then you look up at the headstock and there's some other name on there and it's a different shape. You don't feel as good about it for some reason. And there's, you're buying a name. Basically, a lot of other guitars are a lot better than what Fender's making, but you're buying that name.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe where the moral confusion is if you don't buy a Fender guitar, but you still look up at the headstock and it still says Fender and it's still that shape, and it feels more like a lie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's, I've seen some really bad counterfeits.
Oh, yeah. Well, they used to be a lot different.
Yeah.
The ones now are like from some sort of movie. What was that movie where they made the painting counterfeits? I can't remember.
I have no idea.
Was it the Thomas Crown Affair?
I didn't see that movie.
I don't remember. There was some movie where they made counterfeits of paintings and it was a big deal. But that's basically what we're dealing with here now, is that these shops making aesthetic perfect copies of existing guitars, where you rewind back into the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, and clones that were coming out of Asia were not perfect.
Yeah, even if you go back 5 or 6 years ago, the Gibson copies that were rolling out were like an amalgam of Gibson styles. So they'd have the historic logo on the headstock, and they'd be coupled with fretboard inlays that you'd only see on a standard series. And then a lot of times the pot alignment would be wrong, or
the electronics would be all weird inside.
Yeah, it'd be obvious when you took it apart. Oh, these are mini pots. These aren't whatever Gibson's using, Alpha or CTS, whatever the large size pot is.
Or you get something that looks like a Les Paul in the front and even says Gibson Les Paul on the headstock, but then you turn it around and it's bolt neck.
Yeah, right.
Why is this neck bolted on?
When you go back to the old stuff, and that's something that during the 70s, I feel like the Japanese guitar manufacturers excelled at, is there was an issue with lawsuit models, but there are also a lot of kind of great brands that came out of that time.
Absolutely.
Bernie, Greco, Tokai, like just these different companies that were kind of forging their own sound, and their bodies were different. They weren't necessarily using the mahogany with maple cap. Some of these guitars were just maple body, maple cap, or mahogany body with a maple neck. So they sounded different, but they were unique, and they were really playable instruments that I don't know if the market's bottomed out on them again, but I know like 5 or 6 years ago, the market was really hot for these 1970s.
Well, some of them are really good.
Yeah.
And not good because they're good clones, but because they're really good guitars. There were some factories that were making really terrible, knockoffs that didn't play well and had terrible necks and terrible electronics. But some of them were trying to make a really good instrument, and they succeeded. But at the same time, they were trying to make an aesthetic copy of a Gibson or a Fender, and they're just terrible. But a lot of those 70s lawsuit Les Pauls that you get out of Japan are amazing, and people seek them out and buy them over Les Pauls, and they go, "Oh, this is my blah 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 Les Paul
sure
lawsuit copy." And it's just amazing. A friend of mine, a guy in my band, just bought one, I think 6 months ago.
Oh, really?
And I've played around with it. It's awesome.
Is it a Les Paul?
Yeah, it's a Les Paul copy. I forget the brand name, but it's one of those 70 lawsuits companies.
Cool. And Fender, when Fender moved to Japan in the early 80s, they bought out, I want to say it was the Fujigen factory. And basically, my understanding is that factory was the factory that was responsible for making the Tokai and I think Ibanez Strat and Telecaster copies in the 70s. And basically, Fender was kind of took a, if you can't beat them, join them attitude towards it and said, hey, you guys are making really great clones. Let's see what you can do if we give you the templates. And they gave them like a 1957 Strat and a 1962 and said, this is what we want you to work with. And when those engineers had like taken it and messed around with it and gave them back to Fender USA headquarters, the guys at Fender USA couldn't tell the difference.
Right.
And I mean, I own a mid 80s, what they call the Fender Contemporary Standard Strat.
That thing is sweet too.
Yeah, that thing is incredible. It looks great. Yeah, it's got a funky trim on it. Well, it's got a vintage style trim, but that's because it doesn't have the funky trim that Fender wanted on it. It got modded at some point.
Yeah, it's got that big blocky sort of thing when they were trying to figure out what was going to be the new sort of tremolo in the 80s. They're dancing around in between Shallers and Floyd Roses and all sorts of experimental stuff. It's kind of in that breed of tremolos. Like, it doesn't have quite of an identity. It's kind of
a weird thing, and they're hard to find now.
But it's a big block of metal. It's probably amazing.
Yeah. It's anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah, so Fender kind of got smart on that, and I think that sometimes like these Chinese companies, instead of cloning, they should just try to forge their own market with new brands. But I mean, that's a harder road, and it's not as easy to make the quick buck. And it's not,
and you have to kind of wonder what else is going on in these factories. These copies are probably being made in factories that are making normal on-brand stuff. These aren't people who are just sitting around like, oh, I think I'll try to make a copy. Oh, it turns out I'm really good at it. It's a guy who builds Schecters all day, or it's a guy who builds Ibanez's all day.
Well,
the guy who builds Epiphones or Squires all day.
Exactly. The early rumors on a lot of these were that, now I've heard Epiphone has at least claimed in one press release that they own their own factories in China. I think you can even find like factory tour videos on YouTube. But I've heard claims that basically these counterfeits are being built by like rogue factory workers who they build Epiphones at day and they build Gibson counterfeits at night.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
And so they're using Epiphone bodies. So in that case, I mean, they're building high quality. Well, I mean, if
they know their way around the machinery and they know what wrong looks like.
Exactly.
And what right looks right.
Is Epiphone high quality? I mean, I guess that's a debate according
talk about it
according to Casey they are.
We'll talk about that in another episode.
Yeah. Ooh.
So who was the guy who originally brought up this topic on the
Matt
group?
Phillips?
Matt Phillips?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that was on the Bigfoot forum.
Yes.
There's, like we said earlier, there's a bunch of different groups that Steve and I are on. We're on the Gear Talk family of forums a lot, and there's a side forum that kind of started out as a place to put all the trolls.
Exactly, Troll Playground.
Yeah, Troll Playground. I think it was an offshoot of a bunch of them getting banned, and we got invited into it somehow, and it's called Gear Jesus and Bigfoot.
Yes.
Or maybe a different order of those words.
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, but surprisingly, for being a room full of trolls, it's probably the most civil gear forum that we're on.
Yeah, when you give people like a place to kind of like vent constantly, they start to mellow out.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's kind of,
the internet.
Yeah, the internet for sure. Is there anything else that we want to talk about?
I think this is good. I think we covered a pretty broad stroke for number one. So I think this is the end.
The end. A quick mention, our theme music at the beginning of the show is by our friend Adam Powell. You can look him up on Facebook by searching for his name and picking one of the people named Adam Powell.
Yeah.
I think eventually you'll get lucky.
He's on Bandcamp, right? Is it adampowell.bandcamp.com?
Probably.
He just put out a new EP.
It's probably up there for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does some fun stuff. Steve and I have been in a band with him. I've done various different projects with him. Good guy.
Yeah. So anyway, give us some feedback. Hit us up on the Gmail at 60cyclehumcast@gmail.com.
Send us links. Send us pictures.
Look us up on Facebook, 60 Cycle Hum Pod. I don't know, 60 Cycle Hum. Maybe it's just 60 Cycle Hum.
Yeah, I think so. You'll find us.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people out there with that name. I think it's just us.
I think we might be the only group.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But check us out and
see you next time.
Yep. See you next time.